Today's Living Lesson podcast is letting go, creating a void. One of the reasons that I really enjoy creating a void is to allow him, my husband, to fill it. And creating a void also means that we're going to put in or use the principle for waiting. I have to say before I get started that there are so many promises and principles that I live by, and I hope that as you learn them, you begin to learn to use them too in your everyday life. And the best way to remember to do that is to share it with someone. Then by giving it away, it'll come back to you. So there's another principle or promise there that I hope that you will take and run with, and then later on record your own podcast testimony about this. So today's living lesson, the promises, the principles, I wanted to say they're also like using the proper tool to get the job done. For instance, my younger sister, she loves to buy every single kind of gadget, a lot of them for the kitchen, but anything. As far as I go, I can't really do that because I'm continuously traveling, which has become much more difficult just this past week. And I really wasn't even sure if I had done something. I think that's just naturally the way that we look at things. What have I done wrong? How did I mess up? But even as I was asking my husband, he continued to assure me, you haven't done anything wrong. This isn't a punishment. And I then really realized that one of the beauty of going through this last week, where it was hitting me on the practical side, because I am living in a different environment. I don't need to get into it, but even though I'm traveling, it isn't as luxurious as it has been. And so one of the things that I found from that, and it's just more difficult, not that I need to live in luxury, but as his bride, I have been. One of the beautiful things that came from it was the fact that it kind of, I think because I was physically tired, and then kind of, a lot of different things. It kind of brought me to a place of a little, I would say a wee bit broken. But you know what he said to me today that I'd like to just give as a gift to you? You know, when we're just fractured a little bit, maybe that's what it is. I'm not really broken, but I'm fractured a little bit, a little frail. That's the only way his light can shine through, because it has to come through those cracks in our facade. And that's the only way the lost can see it in the darkness. It becomes their beacon, their lighthouse, to guide them to a safe harbor, which is him. So anyway, let me go ahead and share my 2 living lesson examples, my testimonies, to help you understand this principle. So the first one I'm going to go over is spiritually. And then later I'll go over to the practical one in my everyday life. So spiritually, yesterday I was asked by the lovely person who does my living lessons and takes them from me just recording it and sharing it with her to putting it on YouTube for me, the links, everything, and then passing it off so that it gets posted so beautifully as you're able to come and take it. But she asked me if I had a living lesson because probably it was due. But right now, he's been healing me of being overstructured and too organized. Most of you who know the testimony of the workers at home know that I came from a mother who was a free spirit. Her gift wasn't organization, though she always loved to say, let's get organized, bless her heart. But I'm more like my father. I've shared that before. And also because we tend to go from one extreme to another when we were raised in a certain situation. We tend to go to the other extreme. And of course, because I had a giant family as well, and you have to be more organized, I took it way over there to the other extreme and lived there quite happily, quite comfortably, because it is great, but I don't need to be that organized now. I'm in the harvest season of my life. That's what my husband has said. And so now I can just really kick back a little bit, do less, just do what I want to do. And that's ministering, writing. So being healed from that meant that I can't have a schedule and I can't religiously do a podcast every week unless he leads me. And let me explain about that here. Unless he takes my hand, as he did just a few minutes ago, to record this podcast, I refuse to go. I just don't want to do that anymore. If he doesn't lead me to record, then I'm just not going to do anything. And I'd rather just step back and wait. And it's so not like me, because I love to be an example. And if I'm saying, let's have one every week, and for years and years and years, 33 years, I was very diligent to have something, and definitely with my fellowships or writing a chapter through all, like for instance the Abundant Life series, I just wrote a chapter every week until that book was done. But now he wants to do something new, again healing me from that, and also from having to explain. I simply answered, because one of the last living lesson was, just ask him, ask your husband. And so I did. What should I say? And he just said, just say no. And I did. And that's very difficult, because I tend to want to give an example or why I'm doing it. But if I had done that, I probably wouldn't have recorded this podcast either, because I'd already let that out, I hope that makes sense. I know all of you are listening from your heart and not your head, because that's what we are created to do. It's what helps us to understand young children who can't articulate, understanding a baby. We listen from our hearts. And when we listen to one another, we don't have to always say, we just understand. And it's quite different than the way he created a man to be. So anyway, let me move on. So I refuse to just record something or feel pressure to do it. And instead, I just waited. And I have to say, too, I'm no different than most wives. Even though I'm his bride, I tended to take his hand where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do. But those days are in the past. I want something new. I want to get closer to him, more intimate with him, become an older, because I am getting older every day, I'm older, an older wise woman to be able to minister to each of you. So, and another thing is, I know when something is totally from him, or when there's maybe too much of me. And so, again, I'm just not interested. And that's where I am now, and that's my spiritual testimony. So let me move on to practically. As I said earlier, I've been traveling consistently for almost 2 years. And because of that, I don't have cable. I don't like to watch commercials. I don't like to be bothered with them. I remember the first time that we got a satellite dish, I think, and we could fast forward through commercials. I couldn't believe that we were allowed to do that, knowing that commercials are what pays for, them to even have to pay my father, for instance, because my father, worked in television for years. So it was just incredible for me when that happened. Anyway, now because I'm traveling and I don't have something like a cable, I need to stream. And because I'm streaming, and each streaming device has different shows and movies and television series to watch. I had several of them. But more recently, in the last year, a lot of the newer shows and series began becoming more political and things that, well, it always gets more dark, right, as the years go on. And so I just began to let go of one streaming service after another, until I really had nothing at all. And I realized, okay, he's creating a void, and I'm going to wait. I would rather sit and be absolutely bored. Just sit here, night after night, evening after evening, when I normally use it just to relax, rather than to fill the void that I knew by waiting and leaving it open that my husband would fill. And fill he did. He just blessed me so much. The first thing he had me do is start to watch again several of my favorite movies, some that I had purchased, when they were on sale. And I enjoyed them so much. And before I go on, I just have to say something that my husband had me check before I started recording, that I had to wait 5 weeks of being bored with nothing to watch before he filled it. And in the end, that what I'm going to be, all these services that I let go of, he showed me that there is one that was new that just comes with my phone, a service, and all in all, I'll be paying only 10% of what I was paying. Now, I don't really care about that so much because poverty mentality and moving mountains, I live by that because it's beautiful. But nevertheless, I love when he does things like that because it's just such a testimony. And when I can get something for less, I just appreciate it much more. I mean, I was raised like that. So anyway, as I said, he led me to watch just good things, good acting. That's what I love watching more than anything, is good acting. Maybe it's because of growing up in Hollywood and hearing my father, my mother, my older siblings always talk about, this is good, he's a good actor, and and who isn't, and being able to tell. And I also have to say too, which is interesting, is this is what we did as a family for 10 years, and this is a good homegrown, for 10 years. When my earthly husband left, we totally took out television. We didn't have anything. We had, we could watch different VCR, I don't know if you know what those, VHS tapes, that my children could watch that. But from 1991, when we totally disconnected from any television, and we didn't get it back until 2001, it was on 9/11, because my sister called and told us when the Twin Towers had been attacked, because she was beside herself, frantic, screaming, crying, because she had 4 sons in the Navy at the time. And one was on an aircraft carrier just off the coast of New York City. And what was interesting about that, I'm just to show how amazing God is, every night on the nightly news, which is when we decided to plug in a TV and get connected, and we watched it in our unfinished portion of our basement. That's where we were for a good long time, almost a year. We didn't have it connected. We had to all kind of stand there and watch, so it was very limited time still. But anyway, we watched with the nightly news. They have a B-roll entrance, and it was my nephew, bless his heart. He's with the Lord now. He was murdered just right before COVID hit. But anyway, getting off on things. But all I can say is that it's just wonderful to have nothing. Like I have no groceries because I move all the time, because he has to fill it. And I have to say too that it began with me naturally being anxious about, I don't have any food. And Yvonne will tell you that I would say, oh my gosh, I've got nothing to eat. And the fact is yeah, I can just order Uber Eats or, some other delivery, but I'm not going to do anything. And I'd rather go hungry than to just fill it myself and just to come up with something, because I really, really want to live by the different principles. I want to leave that void open and then get so excited when he just surprises me with things I could never have dreamed or imagined. So I hope that you enjoyed this podcast, and that if you're grateful, you loved it, you loved the testimonies. I like comments, but first share it with someone else, just ask your husband who, and then talk about it. And also, I'd love you to share your story in the comments. I'd really encourage those of you who are minister or feel called to minister, record a testimony, build up your portfolio or your resume, upload it to YouTube, and then share the link in the comments and create a new playlist with just your testimonies, because they're powerful and I would love to listen to.